Simple Cut software offers the ability to create embroidery designs with pre-cut pieces when working from a book or a pattern piece that you can scan on your computer. First, scan your book or pattern piece and open that scan in a graphic software on your PC. Every computer from Windows has Windows Paint. This works great for this application. First, use the Select tool to select the area of the applique and then select Crop. You'll now have your design only without any text or additional information. In the Simple Cut software, select the new icon to start a new workspace. Select a background color. Next, place a bullet in From File and use the three dots to browse on your PC to locate the newly cropped image and select Open. And next, place a bullet in Trace and the software will convert those scanned outlines to a format that we can use for cutting and embroidery. Select Next. Place a check mark for the color limit and enter 2 for a black and white design. A preview of the proposed trace appears, and if this is acceptable, select Trace. Select Finish, and the traced outline is ready to use. Select the background and delete so that we can see all the components that have been scanned. Let's deselect the auto sequence icon. So you can better see the items in the sequence menu, select the entire design, and let's give it an outline color by selecting the top left for outline and the lower bottom left of a color chip for fill. Now all the items appear in the color film, and we can select and use the Delete key on the keyboard to delete unwanted items. When looking at the design, there should be a total of 6 components: stem, 2 leaves, and 3 components for the flower. I can see that I have 8 in the color film, and I would select and delete any items that I can see are duplicates. Now I can begin to design the embroidery by selecting the colors that I would like for each component of the design. I'll select the stems and leaves and scroll through my color palette until I find an appropriate color. I usually select a lighter color for fill and a darker color for an outline. Work through your design, giving it the colors that you desire for your project. Now select the stitches for your machine embroidered design. I'll select the leaves and stem and select an applique stitch. By putting a check mark in the length option, I can change the size of that stitch, and I might select a satin stitch for the flowers. This software creates a beautiful mitered cornered satin stitch. I can adjust the width of the satin stitch in the upper dialog. For a 3 millimeter stitch when I'm working in inches, enter 0.12, and you can enter or just select another dialog. Let's zoom in so you can see the quality of these stitches. I may like to reduce the density of the satin stitches. Again, with all of the satin selected, I'll place a check mark for density and type in 0.8 millimeters to change the density to a much lighter satin stitch. Before I save my embroidery design, I want to make sure that it's stitching in the correct order. I would like the leaves and stem to stitch first, and so I drag and drop those items in the color sequence menu so that I first have my leaves, stem, and then my flower will stitch in my design. Select the design, and from the Fill Object Properties tab, select Applique as the fill type. This will make sure that the software generates the outlines to place your pre-cut pieces. My design is now ready to save. I'll save this design, File, Save As, and I want to save it in draw format so that I would be able to edit it at any time. And I'll save this as Floral Applique. I'll also want to create an embroidery design that I can send to my machine. File, Save As, and select from any of the file formats that are appropriate for your embroidery machine, and save your file. This would be ready to go to the machine for stitch out, but now we need to cut the components so we have our pre-cut pieces ready for the applique. You'll want to decide what colors of fabric each component of your applique will be cut from, and move those components to one area so that they may be cut at the same time from that particular piece of fabric. To do this, simply move the individual components of like color into one area. These items can be rotated. Use the rotate icon to rotate a component of your design and move it. You'll see that the image is in the background, and to remove it, select View, Backdrop, and Hide. Continue to select the different components of the design that would be cut in individual colors and move them to separate areas. To preview the cut, come up to File, drop down to Export, and Crystals to Cutter. I have a preview now of the items that will be cut, and I can see that this area fits easily within the workspace. I'm about 7 inches by 8 inches in total size. If I'd like to predetermine the size of fabric, from the flyout menu, select the Rectangle tool. Click and drag a bounding box around the items that you wish to cut. This can be resized by clicking the rectangle selection icon. Make sure that this item has fill only, and you could make it the appropriate color for your design, and no outline by clicking in the upper left area of the None option for outline and for fill. That assures when you are going to export this design to the cutter, that area, that rectangle, will not be cut. This makes it easy to determine that I would need about a 4.5 by 2.5 inch piece of fabric to cut the stem and leaves for my design. Make sure that you stabilize this piece of fabric with a starch or a fusible webbing before affixing it to the mat to cut your pieces. If you would like the other pieces to cut at a separate time, simply select them and select None for outline. The fill or outline from an object can be easily added or removed in the Object Properties dialog. To remove an outline, just select None in the Outline tab. You can easily apply an outline later, and this gives you the opportunity to export only one of the items for cutting at a time. To continue to work with this design, cutting the pieces that you need, you'll want to save your design as a separate file. File, Save As, and I usually save this with a designation for cutting, and I save my design. That lets me come back at any time and just select the areas that I would like to cut, and I'll easily be able to predetermine what size of fabric I need to apply to my mat.